And the Greeks were certainly, amongst the lead when it came to, predicting astronomical events,
Yeah,
along with the Chinese. Did they have any beliefs, like, way back when they were something else, or?
You know what? That's a good question, Matt. I'm sure that was a time when the general population had no clue what was going on. And so I would think that the Greek priests and the people who were in charge, the Greek
Aristocracy?
Yes, thank you. Would probably have some sort of idea, because historically, solar eclipses have been used to control people. And to say, if you don't behave as we think you should, we will cause the light of the sun to be taken from the sky. And then everybody got so upset that they said, oh, okay, we'll do whatever you want. And they say, okay, we're going to bring the light back, and you're good for a while longer.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Endlessly fascinating.
Yeah. All right.
Greg, do we have any questions? Give us a good one.
Okay. Now, this one I really had to think about.
Okay.
And it's taken me some time, and I may have got it right. We'll see.
Okay. I'm going to step away for a moment.
Student wanted to know why it is that we notice the sun come up in the east, and we notice the moon travel from the east to the west, but yet the shadow is coming from the west and traveling the other direction. So I think it's important to understand, we have to sort of step back and think about this, and we'll ask James in a moment if I'm getting this right. We have to remember that the sun is not really moving. We're going around it. It's stationary. It's there. So that's why it appears as we spin around to come up. The moon, on the other hand, is moving around us, and it is moving in a counterclockwise direction. So it is sort of moving as we're spinning, and it's sort of that effect of when you're, I guess, driving down the road and you see objects further away not moving as fast as those objects that are close to you. So that's why the shadow is coming from the west.
Sure. All right, I want to point out here real quick that there's a security light on this building. When we got here today, before the sun actually came over the horizon, the security light was on. It went off when the sun was out. The security light is now back on. And so it's getting that dark here. And not only that, the birds, there are no birds. Listen, there are no birds. And so, as we approach totality, the animals truly are beginning to react. Oh, there's a public announcement. Okay.
Kind of sounded like a dog at first.
Yeah.
I will say that it should be very interesting. We were talking about the moon. And the moon's been around a long time. It actually has a name, Luna.
Right.
Which is where the name lunatic comes from. But what you find on a moon dog? Lunar ticks.
Okay, thank you, James. No, what?
I have another one. You know how the man in the moon cuts his hair? Eclipse it.
Oh, gee.
Dun-dun.
Yeah. Okay, you're cut off.
I'll be here all shadow.
Okay, the temperature. Let me check. I have a temperature gun here. Let me check. Well, the pavement is still radiating about 88 degrees, but I'm shooting toward a wall over here. And you can't actually see it, but I'm shooting toward a wall, and the temperature is 77 degrees, which means it has dropped about 10 degrees as we have a few clouds here. That contributes to it, but also as we approach totality, the temperature is dropping.
You can feel it.
Yeah.
I can physically feel it. The humidity seems to be dropping just a little as well.
One thing that we talked about, Matt, is a breeze. We expect a breeze to pick up.
Yeah. I believe with such a sharp temperature gradient, such a sharp drop in the temps, you're going to get these little eddies that develop, and that can create some turbulent winds. It's going to get a little breezy as this happens, I suspect.
Yeah, I do too. In fact, I feel a breeze now, and I don't believe that's just as a result of a breeze going on here. I feel a breeze here from our location at Ambassador Housing here, just right off the campus of Southern Illinois University.
Is the view still obscured by clouds, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
still
a little bit.
covered.
Yeah, still a little covered, but I don't believe it's going to actually totally interfere with our view of the eclipse. And even if we have clouds here, and I sure hope we don't, because there are some breaks in the clouds, it's going to get dark enough that the sun's light, no matter what, is going to be blocked. And so we will get dark enough here to have almost a twilight or dusk sort of hue to the sky. The only thing that with the clouds, if we have them, is that we may not have the luxury of seeing Venus and Jupiter and Regulus and Mercury, right, James?
And Mars, yes.
And Mars. So, Scott, let's take a look at the view of the eclipse now as it's progressing, and we're getting a pretty good view of that.
Yeah,
so
we are at roughly 85% coverage now.
Okay.
So we're getting very near the end.
Quick and easy question from me on Facebook. When will Terre Haute see the eclipse peak?
It should be, as I recall, and I think you did an interview with Mr. Ditton out at Rose Holman. I think it was 2:23.
Yeah.
Okay. So slightly later than what we have here in Carbondale, where the breeze is really picking up. And I hope that's not because of rain, but I don't see any great threat of rain right now.
I'm going to step out and take a look at these weather conditions and just make sure we don't have a little rain shower headed our way.
Okay.
Obscure this.
I want a full report.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, very good.
I'll be back.
Okay. Another thing that a total solar eclipse did was back in 1919. There was a total solar eclipse. And there was a fellow named Sir Arthur Eddington. And maybe you can chime in on this here, Greg. Albert Einstein had his theory of relativity. And the idea behind this was that something of great mass will bend light. And so Sir Arthur Eddington, during the eclipse in 1919, in December of 1919, actually was able to know where some planets were, which were mostly obscured by the sun. And as the total eclipse occurred, light bended the light, or the mass of the sun actually worked to bend the light around the sun, causing those stars to become visible, and therefore proving Einstein's theory of light being bent by a great mass.
So virtually you could see something that was behind the sun.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know that we're going to see anything like that this time, but we are approaching totality now. It's 1:15 in Illinois. It's 2:15 in Indiana. We're just about, here in Illinois, I'm just about 6 minutes away from totality. I think what I would like to do at this point is get our shot of the sun. You don't have a shot of the sun? Oh, because of the clouds, right? Oh, boy, talk about rotten timing. Yeah, let's show them the animation. Let's show what might be happening during the animation here, and show that. You got that running there, Scotty? Okay, that's going. And so I'm going to step over here, and boy, wouldn't you know it? Okay, there's the diamond ring. There's the corona of the sun, which is the atmosphere of the sun that we never see. And so then, after about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the moon will move away. Certainly not that fast, but the moon will move away from the sun. And, of course, that will wind up at about, a little before 3 o'clock. I think it's 2:47 for us down here in Illinois. If you have further questions, I, of course, encourage you to submit them to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Kevin Orpert. We are getting questions in. And we have questions here from Greg's middle schoolers at, oh, listen, the cicadas.
Yeah.
Listen. We also hear cheering from downtown Carbondale. So there's cheering in downtown Carbondale. The cicadas are singing. And typically you don't hear them until a little bit later on in the evening. It's really quite dim here now,
Yes,
James.
it is. And I see a hole approaching in the clouds. We may time it just right. It's going to be very, very close.
All right, good. I think with...
Oh, boy, it's gotten weird.
It has gotten very strange, but they're still delivering mail. There's the mailman over here. And so I hope he takes a moment to just take a look at totality.
Neither rain nor snow nor solar eclipse.
Eclipse of sun, yeah.
Yeah. dedicated.
Yeah,
Oh my.
I'd say so.
Whoa.
So what?
It's just suddenly a dip in the available light. We are 4 to 5 minutes away, and we are at about 90% coverage.
Yes, we are. And as we get into, okay, the sun's trying to come back out now.
Peeking through.
Here, yeah. So we might really be in good luck for all of our affiliate stations across the United States with Heartland Media. I want to alert you now to stand by because we're about to approach totality in Carbondale, Illinois. This is the point of the longest duration of totality along the entire path across the United States. Technically, it happens just a little bit south of Carbondale, but it will be imperceptible that there is any little time difference of just a few seconds here. So, again, it's getting dark. I can't tell. Frankly, I'm under an umbrella. I can't tell if it is because of the clouds or because of the dimming of the sun.
But if I might, I'd like to give a shout out. I have family in Herculaneum, Missouri, where totality is happening right now.
Oh.
It happened at 1:15 our time. And to my cousin Karen, my cousin Beverly, and my Uncle Dave, just a shout out and let them know, enjoy the shadow. My cousin Butch, who lives there, is in Alaska for some silly reason. But he was always the odd cousin anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, we're getting very close to totality. For it's 1:18, say 18, 19, 20. We're 3 minutes. It's 1:19. I'm 2 minutes away. What I would like to do is go to any sort of image we can have from other cameras that we have on site here at Carbondale with the ambassador housing. What I want to do is step out away from the camera, and we're going to just let people. There's fireworks going on. Fireworks happening.
That's unexpected.
All right. There's a big cloud over the sun, but things are really starting to pick up here. This is excitement fills the air as we are here in Carbondale, Illinois. Once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in as we do this live web stream. Heartland, it is dark here. It is absolutely dark here.
They're howling,
now.
Kevin.
They're howling. People, ladies and gentlemen, it is dark. Totality approaches. Here are the crowds downtown.
Wow.
This one's for you, Heavenly. Oh! Birds.
There go some birds, some starlings, I believe.
Time now, 1:20 Illinois time.
I can see a planet. I can see a planet in the western sky. What is that, James? Is that
is
Venus?
actually a star. No, that is a star because it's twinkling.
Okay. What is it? Do you know?
No, I do not.
All right, that's fine. There's a star visible in the western sky. It's twinkling. It looks to me like we may just have a hole come in the clouds so we can actually completely view totality in Carbondale, Illinois. There is the sun. There's an airplane flying, probably one of those NASA planes.
I suspect, yeah.
Here it is.
Here
Here
we
it
go.
is. Oh, there's the diamond ring. Whoa!
Oh, wow.
Ho, ho. Whoop.
That's all right.
There's the corona. There is the... There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Wow!
And Kevin, sometimes you get lucky.
There's your planet.
Yeah.
That is a planet.
There's our planet. Yeah, planet Venus is off to the right of the sun. And now,
I can see Bailey beans.
Bailey's
Bottom
beads,
right. See bottom
mountains on the moon.
Kevin, I think I'm getting bit by mosquitoes.
Yeah. Look, and there's the diamond ring. Look at that. Whoa. All right. Put your glasses back on.
Wow. Glasses back on.
Oh, wow. Wow. And look, look on the floor. Look on the ground. On the ground. There are the waves. There are the waves. Yep. Hey, Moira.
Beautiful. And that's what makes stars twinkle. That is what makes stars twinkle. And look,
I'm seeing it. I'm videotaping it.
Folks, this seems a little disorganized here because we're all so excited as now light returns to the planet. This is absolutely
Here, Kevin, I'll take the camera for you. Let's interview these people.
Yeah,
Let us witness something amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still just a few, but we're done with those.
Come on over here. I want to talk to Oliver and Eve. How we doing, Scotty? We on? Yeah. All right, Oliver, Eve, you just saw something that it could be once in a lifetime experience. Tell me how you felt when you saw this, and what did you describe to everybody what you saw?
It was very surprising because it was behind a really big cloud, and then it just like kind of separated.
Yeah,
it was kind of surprising.
It was, and what do you think, Eve? Wasn't that really cool?
Yeah, it was cool because there was a black spot, but then there was a bunch of sunlight around it.
That was the moon completely covering the sun, and just around the sun was what we call the corona. And the corona is actually the atmosphere of the sun, and we really don't see that because the sun is so bright. So the only time you can see that is when you have a total eclipse like that. And so what you guys just saw was something I've never seen in my lifetime. Now, there's another one in 2024, and I hope it's just as impressive, but I got to tell you, I just got a thrill. I mean, it was something I've never experienced before. Folks watching on our web stream, I hope you saw that. I hope you felt the excitement that we felt here. Did you hear the people hollering downtown?
Yes.
Yeah, and the fireworks going off?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, thanks, you guys. I'll let you get back because there's still some viewing to do in your glass because the sun is still above or the moon is still in front of the sun. So that's the way things have shaped up here in Carbondale, Illinois. It's hard for me to describe again. I hope those of you who experienced this or even a part of this, a portion of this, I hope you can understand how very, very special this was. And not only that, if maybe you could project yourself back into times past, years past, 100 years, 1,000 years past, how our ancestors must have viewed that, how they must have thought, what in the world is going on? As the moon slowly covered the sun and then completely covers the sun, and then bam, you see the diamond ring effect, which we saw so vividly here. It was absolutely, it just knocked my socks off. It really did. And I hope all of our viewers across the Heartland Media websites and so on, I hope you had a chance to see it too, because this, in many cases, could be a once-in-a-lifetime event. Who wants to, yeah, James.
First thing I'd like to say was I've been an astronomer for 49 years. That was the most intense thing I have ever witnessed.
Yeah.
But now is not the time to put your glasses away because the eclipse continues for another 90 minutes. If you want to watch the end of it, keep your glasses with you.
Yeah.
But that was, the clouds parted just enough for us.
Just in time.
I know, it was beautiful. Well worth the effort. I'm so glad we made it.
Yeah, back in Roman times and Greek times, the gods were thought, small g, thought to be responsible for such an event, and maybe it was the small g, I don't know, but the sky parted just in time for us to see this spectacular view.
That was a magical event. Matt, you got to get in here and give us your thoughts.
Yeah.
I got my own mic, Kevin.
Okay.
Wow. I feel as giddy as a little girl, Kevin.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. I was expecting something otherworldly, and it delivered. And it delivered in spades. Those shadow bands at the end,
Yeah.
just sublime.
And those are actually little waves. I don't know
Yeah.
if we were able to see them, but they're little waves that appeared on the concrete here, and just little bands of shadows moving across the concrete.
The best
Really
way,
something.
I think, to describe those would be, sunlight getting filtered through your pool. You look at the bottom of a pool and you see.
Oh, good idea.
just that
Yeah,
little
yeah. That's
light
very
pattern.
good. That's very good. Greg, come on over here. Let me get with
Greg,
you.
you're up.
I want your reaction.
I mean, what can you say besides wow, which
Yeah.
Matt said? I mean, that was absolutely wonderful. I had a lot of people asking me, why do you want to go down there? Why do you want to go see that?
Well-
Is it really going to be that? People saying it's not really going to be that dark. That was an absolutely amazing experience. There were 3 things that I wanted to see. 4. The Corona.
Right.
I wanted to see Bailey's beads. There was a very bright Bailey's bead in the lower right-hand corner. And I wanted to see those shadow bands.
Yeah.
And I probably would have missed them had not someone running around saying, there they are, there they are, there they
Yeah,
are.
I think it was my wife.
I think it was. I think we were lucky in that we were on this sort of reflective concrete surface.
Yeah.
Had we been out in the grass, I'm not sure that we would have noticed that. So I
Yeah.
think we were in the right spot at exactly the right time, which is evidenced by the clouds and the way that
It
they
just
behaved for us.
Parted at the absolutely right time.
I told my students the other day that I had been hoping for the last 38 years that it was not going to be cloudy on August 21st,
Yeah.
2017.
Well-
it was cloudy, but we still
But
put
the
on a
clouds
show.
just parted right at the right time.
Absolutely,
It's
exactly
as
the right
if
time.
we were doing something right. And I hope that the people along our web stream all across the country were able to see that. And we really didn't talk much at all. I just held the microphone up so that you could hear the fireworks going off, the people cheering downtown, and all the people around here just going, wow. It was, it's just hard to explain. It really is. Do we have any questions, Matt?
Well, Kevin, I'm getting to just that. I want to see how people are reacting at home in the valley. We had some, or we still have some thunderstorms over there. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they saw it or not. I'm really hoping that they were able to see something. If they
Yeah.
saw anything even close to what we saw, they were in for a real treat. That's the best way to describe it.
All right. Earlier this afternoon, we were downtown, and I came across a guy who was wearing, of all things, a tinfoil hat.
I remember him.
Yeah, you remember that? And so there's a guy down there wearing a tinfoil hat, and I interviewed him. I talked with him for a little bit, and here's how that went. Well, here I am again downtown, talking to Chip. Chip, is that it?
Yeah, right.
Okay, Chip, you are with the Illinois what?
The Illinois Commerce Commission in the rail safety section.
Okay, and so you have your hat.
I
here.
do, which my wife made, and, people like this
So
hat.
it's a tinfoil hat.
It's very hot.
Yes, it is. Now, you have glasses here, is that right?
Yeah, yep. The, official certified glasses for
Okay.
free.
For free?
I had railroad safety fans this morning, but they're gone.
Okay.
I told them it was a fan kind of day.
All right.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Those are free, right? Could I take one back to my wife?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Great. Oh, yeah, those are the real thing.
Yeah.
All right, Chip, thanks for talking with
Thank
us.
you.
All right, you have a good, you're going to watch the eclipse?
Indeed.
Okay.
Yes.
Looks like the weather's going to be
Yeah.
okay.
But with this hat, you got to watch the eclipse.
Okay. Thank you, Chip.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we're back here in Carbondale, Illinois, as the sky grows a little more light. And interestingly, most of the clouds are gone right now.
Yeah.
But even still, it's somewhat dim, Matt.
It is. And like we were discussing, we just had perfect timing. Right at totality, we had just a thin cusp of clear sky, otherwise in a mostly cloudy sky, and we saw it.
Yeah, we sure did. And planes are still flying around here, and it's beginning to warm up somewhat, a little bit. You don't hear the cicadas anymore, and so it's, for the most part, as far as animals are concerned, it seems to be turning back to normal, right?
It's morning again.
They're waking up.
Yeah.
morning again.
Greg, how about you? You have questions there from some of your students that maybe we can filter through?
On top of here, and here we can maybe talk again about sort of the pattern of these. Do other countries have eclipses?
Absolutely.
And yes, they do. James might be able to talk with, sort of regularity. And I guess they're all sort of different lengths, just depending on the placement of how we're all aligned.
Well, that's true. I can say, before we go to you, James, I can say that a total eclipse of the sun happens about every 18 months on this planet. This one has gotten so much hype, I believe, because, first of all, where it happened here in the United States. And that's one of the things. But it also is it's something that happens about every 18 months, but usually it's over like the ocean or someplace where not many people see it.
Yes, almost all eclipses are over water because the Earth is 70% water. And so, you have to charter a boat or a plane to go out and see those. We just happened to be born at the right time to get what I think was the most fantastic eclipse possible in the most convenient of places, near our home.
Yeah, that's right. And I want to tell you also, and we've been talking about historic solar eclipses and so on. I believe I mentioned this earlier. One of the things that has made this eclipse so interesting to us here in the United States is because this is the first time since 1918 that an eclipse has spanned the entire breadth of the United States, from the northwest to the southeast.
Coast to coast.
Yes, coast to coast. Now, there was a solar eclipse up in the northwest. That was back in 1979,
yes,
I believe. And so that happened, but that doesn't really count. So this is the first one since 1918 that it's gone across the entire United States. But there's more. The one in 1918 actually also touched on the Bahamas. And so this eclipse here had its totality only across the United States, from Oregon to South Carolina. The last time that happened was in the year 1257. So the United States has not experienced an eclipse like this since we were the United States. And this will not happen again, where it's only the United States, until the 25th of January in the year 2316. So this was a truly unique eclipse that occurred just a few moments ago, at least here in Carbondale, Illinois.
And the fact that it was centrally located on the states, I read somewhere, and I don't even know the percentage now, the percentage of the United States population that had the opportunity to drive to it, that was within driving distance.
Millions and millions and millions of people. I have no idea what it's going to be like getting out of Carbondale here. I had heard some horror stories a little while ago about Highway 57 being clogged up, and also Highway, I think it's 13, that comes here into Carbondale. So I don't know if we're ever going to get out of here, but I came to see what I came to see.
We saw it. Worth it.
Yep. And I would like to hear from you, by the way, on our Facebook post, Kevin Orpert, and if you can post pictures. I think we have the ability to post pictures. Yep. And do you have comments or questions?
We have some comments.
Good.
Lynn McGammon Brown says, thanks for the live stream. Spectacular.
Good. Thank you, Lynn. Because, yeah, it was very special for us. If you watched it on the computer, I hope we could just convey even a portion of how exciting it was, and hope you got just sort of a feel about what we experienced down here. Okay, Greg?
Mentioning earlier the things that I was looking forward to, and I saw the one I neglected to mention, which probably the most spectacular, was that diamond ring.
Yeah, it was.
And I am sure, I will admit, I probably looked at it just a little bit longer than I should have.
Yeah, me too.
But I just couldn't pull it was one of the most magnificent natural phenomenons I think that I have ever seen.
How many fingers?
You have fingers?
Yeah, he needs to get to a doctor. Okay. We're going to continue our coverage of this great American eclipse, or the great United States eclipse. What I want to do here, you guys talk for just a second among yourselves. And we did another interview, which I'll get to in just a moment here, Scott. But I also want to get the person who is the manager of this complex where we are, because they've been very gracious in letting us essentially move in for this event. So I'm going to go corral him. You guys talk. We're going to show an interview, and I'll be back in just a moment. So go ahead. And that's going to be one of your interviews. Let me see. You want to do Rose Holman?
Sure. Yep, with Dr. Richard Ditton. We did an interview with him a couple of weeks ago about this upcoming eclipse, and it still has some pretty good information in it, and I think you'll enjoy it.
If you've never seen a solar eclipse, your chance is coming soon. Come afternoon on August 21st, you'll see one given a clear sky. Astronomers like Rose Holman's Dr. Richard Ditton have been waiting for this one for a long time.
This is going to be a total solar eclipse, which means that the moon will appear big enough to completely cover the sun for at least 2.5 minutes.
Places in southern Illinois and Kentucky will get the complete eclipse, but you will still see more than 90% of the sun covered in the valley. Ditton says we haven't seen an event like this locally in more than 20 years.
Well, in 1994, we had an annular eclipse. And at that time, the moon wasn't quite big enough to completely cover the sun, but it was still pretty spectacular. And that went right through Terre Haute.
A great way to view the eclipse indirectly is to make a pinhole projector.
Just take a shoebox, cut a hole in it, and then cover the hole with aluminum foil and punch a small hole in the aluminum foil with a needle. And then you can point this to the sun, and you can see an image of the sun at the bottom of the box.
Before you view the solar eclipse, you have to have the proper eyewear.
So the sun is very, very bright, as everyone knows, and you don't want to stare at it for long periods of time unprotected. A lot of places around town are selling solar glasses, and when you buy one, you want to make sure that it's ISO certified, and that will keep you safe.
The best time to see the solar eclipse for us will be 2:23 p.m. Eastern Time. If you miss this one, the next event will be April 8th, 2024, which will be a total eclipse for the valley.
All right, we're back here with Jeff McConnell, who is the, what is your official title now?
General Manager.
Okay, General Manager of Ambassador Housing. And Jeff, I just want to thank you for allowing us to come in here and use your courtyard. You've been very gracious to us. You let us get in and use the restroom and get into some air conditioning because, frankly, it's quite hot here. So I just wanted to acknowledge to everybody how gracious you were. And what did you saw the eclipse. What did you think of that eclipse?
Well, it wasn't quite a religious experience, but it was darn close. I remember an eclipse back, I think in 63-ish when I was a kid.
It was 63.
63. Yeah. And I remember standing in my backyard watching that. Even though it wasn't total, it was a very awesome experience.
Yeah.
So it was a nice reminder.
Yeah, I think 63, I was maybe 8 years old. Yeah, I was 8 years old. Yes. How about you? I'm not going to ask.
Pretty close.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, anyway, Jeff, thank you very much for letting us be here today. We're going to be here a while longer.
It was our honor. And I have one question, if I might.
Oh, go ahead.
Actually, two. One is, how do you stay so cool on camera? I'm out here sweating.
Yeah, I am too.
And number two is, I don't know if it's been asked yet, but what's the frequency of total eclipses globally? Is it annually, every 5 years, every 10 years?
We did talk about that once about every 18 months.
Wow.
One spot on the globe will experience a total eclipse. Now, a lot of these, Jeff, are in places that are very isolated, maybe over the ocean, or in places that don't get as excited as we do here in the United States. But about every 18 months, we can have a total solar eclipse.
Very cool.
All right.
I'm glad we're part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Les, I'm going to walk right over here. We'll see how well. Les, the engineer, by the way, has been so great operating the solar camera. And so I'm going to get to you here in a little bit, Les, but I'm going to walk right to James C. Wallace II, Matt Brooks, meteorologist at WTHI-TV, and of course we have Greg Sloan. And so while I was away, anything happen?
Well, not a whole lot. We've been combing through some of the questions on Facebook. That started to slow down a little bit. I think people are starting to notice that, it's kind of past
right.
The max, and the excitement's worn off just a little bit.
Okay.
The fever pitch has started to calm down a little.
Okay. All right.
So one question, maybe, James, that you can address is, in 1979, we had the last one. They said the next one is going to be August 21st, 2017. And today we're already talking about the next one is going to be April, 2024. How are they able to predict those so precisely? What type of instruments and things are involved in that?
Good question.
And the only instrument we truly need is the human brain, because we do simple addition, little bit of geometry, and by using Newton's laws of physics, we can calculate the moon's orbit, how long it takes to go around, the angle of inclination, and by plotting those two together, we can come up with a graph. A very simple way to do it. Again, it's not difficult math, but a lot of people look at that and they are kind of put off because it is math, and math rules. I mean, our world is ruled by math, and it's one of the greatest things ever. And if it wasn't for math, we wouldn't know to be standing here and seeing an amazing experience. So it's just the human brain that does it. No other special tool than that, maybe a pencil.
Okay. It's basically the same thing that has allowed us to go to the moon, to send out spacecraft and the Voyager and those types of things as well.
Yes. Now, I'm going to point out a rather odd fact. I'm not sure how people will feel about this. You talk about going to the moon, and we've been to the moon, a number of times. 12 Americans have walked on the moon.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Oh boy.
I'll have you know that I have.
Here come the questions.
I'll have you know that I've bounced laser beams off the reflectors on the moon, so I know they went.
And I got some tomatoes from you.
Yes, you
that
did.
Were up in the. All right. Okay. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, we talk about mathematics in astronomy, and in the 9th to 12th century, the Middle East had what they called madrasas, schools of mathematics and astronomy. Ulugh Beg, the great-grandson of Tamerlane, a great Mongol warlord, started an astronomical madras, a school, and through his work he developed cosine and tangent tables that Apollo engineers used to calculate the orbits to get to the moon. So if it wasn't for the Middle Eastern astronomers and mathematicians of the 9th to 12th century, we might never have gone to the moon. And so we have them to thank for that kind of thing.
All right. Tell me, if you can, there's something called the Saros cycle.
Yes.
S-A-R-O-S, the Saros cycle. And James, if you could address that a little bit, because that plays a role in the fact that we have eclipses and so on. So
it comes from the Greek, if I'm not mistaken.
it could be.
Right.
You know what? I don't know. I'm not very good in my Greek anymore, although I have ancestors who are Greek, but my Greek isn't very good. So
Well, if you give me a minute, I'm going to look it up for you while you look at something.
All right. Well, let me.
I have a comment on Facebook that
Excellent.
I'd like to share for you. This one comes from Barry Kent in
Barry
Brazil.
Kent. Oh.
You know Barry.
Hey,
We know
Barry.
Barry.
Yeah, Barry.
All right. Here's what Barry had to say on Facebook. We had a spectacular view at the Legend and Light 92 studios up until maximum coverage and clouds moved in. It got eerily dark and the headlights on the cars were bright. Looking up and down US 40 in Brazil, there are many viewing parties going on.
Great.
So
great.
it looks like they got to experience the ethereal part of this.
And I will say, at first we were a little disappointed because the clouds are moving in. And to be honest, I was trying to look on the positive side. I'm kind of glad the way that happened because it was hidden for just a moment. So when it came out, it was kind of like opening a present on Christmas morning.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
just there,
Yeah.
It was just right there.
That is a great way to describe it. Now, while James is looking for the Saros cycle, let me toss out a word for you. Syzygy.
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 Well, Sis is same.
Right? Yeah. Well, yes. Syzygy is a word used to describe when planets, or in this case, the moon and the earth and the sun line up.
In the same line.
Yes, yes. And so the reason this was able to happen today is because of something called syzygy, because we had the earth and then the moon and then the sun. And so syzygy happens on a somewhat regular basis, either with planets. Maybe planets can be all on one side of the sun or somewhere along and through there. It has various terms, but today's event was truly because of syzygy, where the moon, the earth, and the sun were all lined up.
And we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, and for those who maybe weren't watching then, that syzygy, say it again.
Syzygy,
Yes,
yeah.
would allow for an eclipse like this to happen every month if it were not for the fact that the moon is on an incline. It's not going around the same plane as the earth and the
Right.
sun. 5 degrees, I believe we talked about
Yeah.
earlier. Or this would just be an every month occurrence, and it'd be no big deal. People would just kind of go about their ordinary lives.
Wouldn't that be the worst thing if this were just to become everyday,
I agree.
mundane?
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's really special that, excuse me, in some cases happens in a lifetime. This is my lifetime. I've never experienced anything like this. And so I think it's the fact that it's rare and so unique that causes us to once again have that almost, as Jeff said a little while ago, almost a religious experience.
Almost.
Almost. What you got, James?
Well, I'm afraid I'm a little befuddled. I can't find my information. I'm just a little overwhelmed by the experience, and I'm certainly not going to make an attempt at that sizzy word.
Syzygy.
As a matter of coincidences, I think it's kind of interesting. One of the students had asked earlier about, why is it the perfect size to cover up the sun? And we talked about distance a little bit earlier, but I think going back to math, it's sort of a proportion. So the sun is, 400 times. Hello. The sun is 400 times larger than the moon, but it's also 400 times farther away. So with that proportion, it allows for it to be the perfect size, which is great. Much bigger, we would not have seen the corona.
Yes.
And much smaller, like we talked earlier, it only have been annular. So it's just one of those coincidences that happens out perfectly.
I was just talking a little while ago, and you found Saros, James, but let's talk about the corona, and not what you're going to have later on, but the corona, as I understand it, is the atmosphere of the sun, which we never see.
No, we never do see it. And the corona has the strangest effect astronomers have ever seen. The center of the sun gets about 15 million degrees. The surface of the sun is around 2 million degrees. But the outer atmosphere, the corona, is roughly 10 to 12 million degrees. Why? We haven't a clue. We can't quite figure it out. It may have something to do with the intersection of magnetic field lines. It may have something to do with the transfer of kinetic energy. Just don't know. It's one of those mysteries that we're working to solve. It's one of the reasons why we fund spacecraft to go out and explore the sun. Ulysses is a spacecraft that went around the north and south pole of the sun, and it's starting to give us some answers. We not only saw the corona, I saw some streamers, I saw one flare.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I saw one flare. It was just off in the upper left. And I knew there wasn't going to be many flares just because the sun is in a very low cycle right now. But we saw that. We saw the Bailey beads. We saw the diamond ring. I think we saw just about everything we wanted to see.
All right. So tell me about the Saros.
Okay.
cycle.
Well, solar eclipses occur between Saros cycles. It seems that similar solar and lunar eclipses, and this works for lunar as well as solar because they both involve the moon and the sun, just in a slightly different position. They recur every 6,585.3 days. That's 18 years, 11 days, 8 hours. You mentioned the 18 years, right? Add another 11 days and 8 hours, and you get eclipses of similar length and time. That 18-year, 11-day, 8-hour cycle is called a Saros cycle. It has to do with nodes and the fact that you have the inclination of the moon at 5 degrees, and every now and then those nodes will intersect between the sun and the earth, and when that happens, we get a shadow.
All right. Something else I'll talk about this 18-year cycle, just slightly more than 18 years. When we think about the sun and how through the course of the year it goes a little farther to the north and then a little farther to the south. All right. And then the middle part is where we have the equinox. Okay. So you have the equinox and the solstice, the farthest north and the farthest south. The moon also takes a similar path. Now, the moon does not rise in the same spot every night to begin with. And the moon, on average, rises about 40 minutes later every night. But over the course of about 18 years, the moon actually travels a little farther north in its rising and setting, and then a little farther to the south. That takes about 18 years. There are some studies done that indicate that there could be weather patterns associated with this transit, this movement of the moon. It hasn't been proven necessarily, but there are those who believe that we get more precipitation in the northern hemisphere when the moon is at its farthest point to the north. I don't know. I think we're about in the middle of that progression right now. So I don't know, but I think that's quite fascinating.
Now, you mentioned that, and that term, besides calling a Saros cycle, is called an analemma. And if you look on any globe, you will have the path of the sun creating what's called an elongated figure 8. And that describes that very path you're talking about, a little north, a little south over an 18-year period. And every globe has this figure 8 pattern, and that's called an analemma. And this helps you to predict when those eclipses will occur by using this and a little bit of math.
James, if you want to show us that again, I can get behind the camera and do a
Yeah, let's
close-up
do that.
so
Yeah,
people
because
watching
every globe, even today, has this on there. This is a very important tool. and it's something that we should make note of. So let me come over here, and I'll show you. This is the...
Wait a minute.
Oh, stay right there.
Here you go.
This is a globe, the lovely United States of America, and this is the cycle that we're talking about. It forms a figure 8, and the equinox is where the two intersect. The solstice, that would be the winter, and that would be the summer solstice. And this is on every globe sold. And it's a feature they've had for as long as we've had globes and maps. Well, you know, Christopher Columbus used one of these, and it helped him to determine lunar eclipses, and that helped.
Wait a minute. No, hold on a second.
Uh-oh.
Now, I was taught in school, I was taught when I was young, that Christopher Columbus set out on the ocean with the belief that the Earth might be flat. How did he have an alemma?
Well, he didn't have one himself. He had charts that didn't progress like this, but gave him the numbers he needed.
Okay.
And by, again, using the mind and a writing device, he was able to calculate out when a lunar eclipse would occur. And using that in, I believe, 1504, on the island of Santa Cristo, I think it is.
Perhaps. I think I know where you're going on that.
Yes. He used, the natives there were not very friendly to Christopher Columbus. They didn't want to help him survive. They didn't want to provision him. They didn't want to do anything for him.
But let me, because I know this story.
Yes, please tell it.
The reason they didn't want to help him is because Christopher Columbus, one of his ships had been stranded, all right? So it ran aground, and the natives for a while shared their provisions with his crew. And the crew became very rowdy. They became bawdy. They started to take advantage of the Native American women. And so that's when the chief said, "You're done. You're cut off. We're not going to supply you anymore. Go on."
And that's, you know, a fair thing for them to do. But Christopher Columbus, knowing science, astronomy, and the nature of lunar and solar eclipses as he did, said to the chief that if you do not help me out, I will turn the moon blood red. And that night, the moon turned blood red, as it does in a lunar eclipse because of sunlight passing through the Earth's atmosphere. Only the red light is bent around, and it turns the moon blood red. Well, the chief and the natives were absolutely terrified by this, and Christopher Columbus said, "Provision us, treat us nicely, I'll bring the moon back." He agreed almost instantly, and soon after, the moon turned back to its lovely yellow color, and he was provisioned and happened to make it back to Europe.
Good. What a great story. There's so many great stories with eclipses and so on. Now, Matt was out a little bit earlier this afternoon. We take a little walk through downtown in Carbondale, Illinois, just about, less than half a mile from where we are, just a few blocks over. There's a big event going on in downtown Carbondale. And Matt, I believe you talked with the Chamber of Commerce. Is that right? Matt talked with the Chamber of Commerce there, and so we have that interview ready to go. And here's what Matt found out from the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, thanks for joining us. We're with two members of Carbondale Tourism. Your names, please?
I'm Rachel.
And my name's Jordan.
Rachel and Jordan. So obviously, some big events happening in Carbondale today. The solar eclipse, obviously. How are you guys accommodating this?
Well, we've been doing a lot of planning. It's been 2 years plus. So we have the Carbondale Eclipse Marketplace that we are in right now, and that's a Carbondale tourism event. And then we also have the Shadow Fest, which the city of Carbondale and Carbondale Main Street have partnered with to bring you guys down in Washington Street. The university has a bunch of stuff going on. NASA's here in town. So just a bunch of activities and everything for everybody. It's a family fun zone that's in the Town Square Pavilion. We just had a train come in, the Amtrak Special Eclipse Day train, and that had 400 visitors on it. So we're just trying to make sure that everybody's accommodated.
So, Jordan, you've been in Carbondale for a while. Have you seen the population just balloon up today, the past couple days?
No, not at all. So my family is originally from Carbondale and told me stories of Halloween back in the day, before I was born, of course. And so we've heard that this is kind of the most that Carbondale has had as far as population and people and visitors. So it's a good time. It's pretty cool. Kind of groundbreaking, I'd say.
Yeah, there's definitely been more people coming in today. We just, like you said, got the train of 400 people in this morning. It's been really busy. Yesterday, the marketplace was crazy over here. We had live music Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 7 over here. There's been vendors, food, craft beer. Today, they're continuing with local bands over at Washington Street. SIU has a carnival, arts and crafts fair, obviously the big Saluki Stadium event where NASA is going to be at, and yeah, come on out.
Okay, so the events, they don't just last through today, they go all weekend long, so if people want to drop by, there's still things happening.
Yes, a lot of people are staying till Tuesday or later just to make a vacation out of it. There's a lot of other things to do in southern Illinois. We heard, people are going out to Garden of the Gods, people are camping out at Lake Murfreesboro. It's not just Carbondale. A lot of people are in southern Illinois area and exploring all the things to do that are nearby to Carbondale. So there's a lot of people here, and go out and see what there's to offer.
So we have another eclipse coming in 2024. Do you think this is going to kind of set the groundwork for what you guys might do 7 years from now?
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I would say this is kind of like a practice run, so we will definitely continue on and do more events and do good events and everything to have it available in 7 years for everybody to come back.
Well, this is practice. I want to see what perfection looks like. Back to you.
Stand by. And here is a view of the solar eclipse as now the moon moves to the left-hand side of the sun. And it will continue to do this. We already have passed totality, and so we continue to have a very, very good view of the sun, as you can see here. Hey, Les, could you just tilt down a little bit? There we go. Once again, that is a view of the sun as the moon now exits the solar disk. Once again, this is a very, very impressive sight. If you are watching in any area where you have at least some eclipse going on, you need to watch this with your special glasses. You need to use solar glasses in order to see this. I have a special filter on the camera we're using, and so that's the reason I can show that to you. But otherwise, you need to use your special glasses. It is not safe to view the sun at this point. The only time it was ever safe was during that few moments of totality that we experienced a little while ago here in Carbondale, Illinois. And so, Matt, Greg, James, I'm going to pop it back over to you.
All right, thank you for that, Kevin. James Wallace, our astronomer. I have a question for you, and this is kind of an open-ended one, so I'll do my best to be concise. Many people just watched this solar eclipse. Many people were probably in awe, just like ourselves. Yeah, indeed is correct. If it so inspired someone to take up astronomy, or perhaps even the hobby of astronomy, what are some of the things coming down the line that they could see? It might not be a solar or lunar eclipse, but what else is coming down the pipes that might be of interest, James?
Well, one of the things I'd recommend if you have an interest, subscribe to a magazine, Astronomy or Sky and Telescope. It's what I did as a child. My dad bought me a telescope, and I took up the hobby. I eventually went to grind my own telescope mirrors, make my own telescopes. But what's coming here lately, for example, if you have a nice small telescope and you go and you look up the frequency of them, you can watch moon shadows crossing Jupiter. And that happens a lot because the moons are always passing around Jupiter. And so you will occasionally catch moon shadows. Venus is up right now. Absolutely gorgeous. I definitely recommend that. Venus and Mercury are the only two planets that do phases. Just like we're seeing the sun going through a phase with the moon passing in front of it, Venus and Mercury, because they are interior planets, they will then go around in such a way that the geometry allows us to only see parts of them lit up at certain times, just like the moon. And so we see phases. I've seen crescent Venuses and crescent Mercuries, and they're an amazing sight to see. And so that's something coming up. Meteor showers are always the great thing to see. And we have about a dozen a year. About 4 of them are really spectacular, where you'll get, one a minute. And if you're out in a dark location, a meteor a minute is a pretty exciting thing to see. I remember back in the year 2000, I happened to be down in Arkansas, and I was on a lake at about midnight when the Leonid meteor storm, which was different than the meteor shower. It comes every 33 years. I was counting 650 meteors an hour at 2 a.m. I've never seen anything like it, and so I recommend meteor showers.
What's the difference between shower and storm?
Well, the Leonids normally produce 60 an hour.
Okay.
This one is producing 650 an hour. So that's the difference, a factor of 10, from a shower to a storm. Sort of a weather-related thing, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I definitely would say.
Excellent.
James, I'm going to set a scene for you.
Oh, please.
About 9, 10 years old. I'm a broke kid. have a lot of money. My parents are low income. What's the best way to get involved in astronomy?
Seek out local astronomy clubs. There are people in those clubs who will bend the Earth's, orbit to make you interested in it. I highly recommend it. And there are plenty of those organizations out there. The Indiana Astronomical Society is a wonderful organization that promotes astronomy. They have a great facility in Mooresville, but they go around the state doing events. And if you look them up and look at what they're doing, perhaps you can get to one of those events. There are people there that'll let you look through their telescope. You go to ISU, Indiana State University, and again, I'm doing local here because that's where we're from. Indiana State, the John C. Hook Memorial Observatory, every Tuesday and Friday. They have hours open. Rose-Hulman has an observatory. I don't know their public hours, but I know that they also are open to the public. And there are just opportunities in that way. They cost nothing. And the people who run those, they can't get enough of having children come in and get inspired by what astronomy has to offer. It's how I became an astronomer. I started out, first thing I ever saw was Saturn. Next thing you know, I'm building my own telescopes, and before you know it, I'm publishing research papers, I'm photographing, and I'm doing all the things I ever wanted to do as an astronomer. This is the highlight. I thought Comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 hitting Jupiter was amazing. I thought the 94 annular eclipse was amazing. I thought every lunar eclipse I've ever seen was amazing. Not compared to what I just witnessed. That was, what was the word? Spectacular?
Spectacular.
Spectacular. There's no other word to describe it.
All right, enough said about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I'm back.
Oh, hey, Kevin, you're back.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah. I had to, leave for a moment.
You had to take
But now
care of
I'm
things,
back.
yeah. All right,
Now
sure.
I'm back. We've talked about eclipse stories. I want to tell you a story.
Okay.
I love these stories.
When Kevin tells a story, you listen.
Well, yeah, I guess. This has to do with Tecumseh, the great Native American leader from our area in Indiana, right?
Yes.
Okay. Tecumseh had a brother whom they called the Prophet. Now, the Prophet was a very interesting character, and I don't know how he did it, but in 1806, he predicted a total solar eclipse. He predicted it. Well, all of the people who were around, and especially the natives, the Native Americans, thought, wow, Tecumseh and the Prophet, they've got it going, and we really are going to follow them, and we support them, and so on. Well, William Henry Harrison, who was governor of the territory at that time, he got very concerned, and he said, well, this isn't going to do. So he said to the Prophet, yeah, okay, you did this once. You need to do it again. You need to show another miracle.
Kevin, did he do it again?
He did it again. The Prophet predicted another eclipse, and it occurred on September the 17th, 1811. The first eclipse was in 1806. The second one was in 1811. Now, the only difference is the one in 1811 was an annular eclipse, so it wasn't completely total, but still it was enough to impress everyone around, and the Prophet and Tecumseh went on to great leadership of the Native Americans in our part of the world, here in Indiana and Illinois, but they also went on to actually get enthralled in some really serious battles as well. Absolutely. But I don't know how the Prophet did it. I truly don't. But he did, and I think that's just a really cool story.
Greg, you holding in over here?
Yes,
Still
I'm
waiting?
fine. I'm
Good? Okay.
getting in the sun, so the sun is moving. So this end of the table, and we're getting back in the sun. So I may eclipse it to that end in just a moment.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Let me just say that I'm not sure the sun's moving. I think we are moving. Yeah. No. That's okay. That's all right. I just wanted to get.
Well, when you get right down to it, the sun is moving around the center of the Milky Way galaxy.
True.
We're moving around the sun, and then the Milky Way galaxy is moving around the center of the universe, and so we're going really fast.
We are very, very fast.
We just can't tell.
Right. And of course, the Earth is rotating at a speed of about 1,000 miles per hour.
Correct.
At the equator, where we are in a little higher latitude. It's not quite that fast, but still, it's a pretty good clip.
You mentioned the Earth's rotation. It's one of the reasons why we launch rockets from Florida instead of, say, from the state of Maine or Oregon. Nothing wrong with those states, but Florida is closer to the equator, and so you have a greater equatorial launch speed. before you even get started. You've already added certain miles per hour. You add that to the rocket speed, and before you know it, you're on your way to the moon.
What was, Matt, you're going to have to help me here.
Okay.
There, because there's a term, and I'm drawing a blank. It has to do with, and we discovered this when we started launching rockets. Yeah. So let's say we wanted to bomb someone at a location a couple hundred miles away, maybe 300 miles away. So we launch a rocket, but because the Earth is turning, we had to adjust the trajectory of the rocket so it didn't fall on the wrong place. What is that?
That, Kevin, would be the Coriolis force.
Ah, yes.
And that in the northern hemisphere tends to pull things to the right. Let's say if it's traveling from west to east, it would have like a southeastern component to it, or probably an east-southeast. And believe it or not, that plays a huge factor in weather. Huge.
Well, for example,
it also explains why hurricanes in the northern hemisphere rotate counterclockwise, while in the southern hemisphere, where they're called typhoons, they tend to rotate, or cyclones, they tend to rotate clockwise. So yeah, it's an amazing effect.
It certainly is.
And I think the misconception is that our atmosphere, since it's part of Earth, is moving with the Earth as it's moving around. And I think the misconception being no, which is there, and we're kind of spinning around underneath of it. The way I describe it to the students a lot of times is that if we're in a merry-go-round and we're spinning around really quickly, and I'm at the center, and I throw the ball to you, you're not going to catch it, because by the time the ball gets there, you're going to be over there, and James is going to be in your spot, and he's going to be the one to catch it.
All right, we've had a lot of people stop by here, and we also saw a lot of people downtown. A little while ago, actually it's been a couple of hours now, some people were up here on this balcony, and I was walking along and they said, hey Kevin, and they hollered out at us and so on. As it turns out, they were from Oblong, Illinois. All right, so I had the chance to talk to our friends from Oblong, Illinois, and so I took a little time to interview them, and this is how that interview went. As we continue meeting people here in Carbondale, look who showed up from Oblong, Illinois. How about that? What's your name?
My name is Chuck Meeks.
Well, Chuck, and who's this pretty lady here?
Jenny.
What?
Wife Jennifer.
Hello, Jennifer. Now, you guys came down here from Oblong, and what inspired you to come down here to Carbondale?
Something to do.
All right, good. Now, where are you going to watch the eclipse exactly?
Oh, probably from our vehicle.
Okay, where's that parked?
Uptown.
Okay.
Downtown Carbondale.
Is it air conditioned?
Yes.
Well, we'll be over here in about, I don't know, just a few minutes. It's hot here. Look at this. I'm sweating. I'm going to have to change shirts by the time we actually do this live web stream, because this is actually being pre-recorded. And so how was traffic on the way down?
The way we came through on, and we didn't get no traffic until probably Salem and down. We averaged probably the speed limit, but both lanes was full.
Okay. All right, good. Well, you have your glasses to see?
Yep.
Okay, good. Yep. Well, I appreciate you guys coming down. And, of course, this is going to be on the web here in a little while. We pre-recorded it, but I wanted you guys to get back to where you're going to be. So thanks for stopping by to say hello.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Oblong, Illinois. Those people were fun.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were just happy to be here, and even happier they were able to find us.
Yeah, that's true, because we had talked on and a couple of my Facebook questions, people asked me, hey, Kevin, where are you going to be? And I said, we're at 601 South Poplar. And so they finally found us. And so that's really good. And I appreciate everybody stopping in. We have some other interviews we're going to show you here in just a little bit. One of the things, I do have an animation I want to show you. If we can get this one queued up. This is the view from space. This is our view from space of what goes on as the eclipse takes place. And so as this goes on, Scotty, give me a thumbs up. Okay, there it is going on there. This is such a great animation. It gives you an idea from a perspective that we will never see. Actually, I prefer the perspective we saw a little bit earlier this afternoon, where we experienced totality as the sun was able to break through the clouds, and amazingly, it's clear. There's not a cloud in the sky around here right now. So that's, I don't know, to me that is almost serendipitous, because it sort of added to the special element of seeing this eclipse, because it was like, are we going to see this? Because it's cloudy, and then all of a sudden the clouds broke through.
Yes, they did, and you used my favorite word, Kevin, serendipitous.
Serendipitous?
Yes, I tend to run my life that way.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you do.
And it served me well. Like I said, I've had a blessed life, and this just tops it all off.
Well, it does. I don't know how we're going to top this. James and I, by the way, first started working together, I think, during Halley's Comet. All those many years ago.
October 1985.
Yep. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to see Halley's Comet. It wasn't very bright. It was quite dim. It's just a little smudge in the sky, but I saw it. And so that was neat, too, folks. If you never get a chance to see a comet, or if you ever do, I will be sure and let you know through our Facebook page, through our website, and so on. I'll let you know when another comet comes around.
Sure. We've had a couple good ones since. I remember Hyakutake, which passed through the bowl of the Big Dipper. I happened to be in Romania at the time and got some excellent photography and worked with a Romanian astronomer. Kind of reminded me of Leonid Brezhnev with the one eyebrow.
Oh, stop it.
He was really something. And then Comet Hale-Bopp, I think, was the big one that you and I remember best.
That was a tragic event, I think.
It was.
Wasn't it Hale-Bopp? Because that was the one where the
Heaven's Gate call.
Yeah, that was a really sad.
I was down in Sullivan photographing the comet next to an iron gate stone archway entrance to Sullivan Cemetery the night that occurred. Now, nobody knew they were doing that until a couple days later, and so for me, it's one of those photographs that, you know, really gets your attention, like, oh my, that was really something. But comets are one of my central areas of research. I've looked at, seen, and photographed 64 different comets. So I happen to really focus on comets. I think they're some of the most fascinating things in the heavens.
And James, we really appreciate all your expertise here. And I'd like to remind you, you can go to Kevin Orpert's Facebook page. Oops, looks like something fell here. You can go to Kevin's Facebook page and drop us a line, drop us a question. Tell us what you saw across the valley. Or if you're watching our web stream, go there anyway and tell us what you saw all across the country. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to answer some of your questions to the best of our ability.
That's right. Is my microphone working? And I dropped, half of my microphone fell apart.
It's very hot, very humid, and holding on to these mics, honestly, it's kind of a challenge.
So if the bosses are watching, it's okay. The microphone is fine.
Yes.
Don't charge me. Because that would happen, you know.
Good.
Wouldn't be the first piece of equipment I've broken.
Kevin, one of my students had asked a question that, and I'm not sure if part of this we talked about, wanting to know why the path of totality is so small. And I'm not sure if earlier we talked about the umbra and the penumbra and sort of the different parts of the shadow or not.
Well, the umbra, which, by the way, is a word that means shadow, okay? And umbra is the root for umbrella. And umbrellas were first invented by the Egyptians, not to keep rain off, but to keep the sun off them, very much like we have an umbrella here. And so the umbra, the actual umbra, through the path of totality is about 70 miles wide. As far as the penumbra, which is a little wider area, but still includes the shadow. James, you know offhand just how wide that is?
Right off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay, I probably have that right here somewhere, but does that answer the question?
Yes. I think so. I just know we hadn't really addressed, I don't think, the umbra and the penumbra, and we hear those words a lot when they're talking about the eclipse, and kind of get that out.
And so, that's the root, umbrella, umbrella, shadow. That's what that's all about. Matt?
Greg, I'd love to hear another question. It's been pretty quiet on Facebook, and I'd love to get some more engagement. Maybe just spark a conversation, get something going.
And we've sort of mentioned this a little bit, but I'm wondering if there's any connection. We talked about how it was perfectly clear right before we got the clouds. Now it's perfectly clear again. And the question was whether or not a solar eclipse affects the weather. So I'm wondering, is there some connection to the fact that all the heating from the sun being out allowed for the clouds to develop, and then as it started to be covered up, less heating, so now the clouds have gone away? Is there any connection? And I'm sure it's on a more of a local, small scale than globally.
I'll defer that to you, Matt. What do you think?
Well, I believe there is a connection. Do I believe it's the sole culprit for causing all the clouds to go right? No. We could have a pocket of high pressure that does that, where we get sinking air that tends to suppress the cloud growth. But I was mentioning earlier in our web stream a thing called the convective temperature, the temperature you would need to hit to allow clouds to form and thunderstorms to bubble up. When that eclipse moved overhead, the temperature shot pretty far down.
It dropped about 10 degrees, according to my temperature gun here.
Yeah, and it's been slowly recovering, but it's still pretty hot now. And I suspect that this pristine blue sky that we're seeing right now will eventually bubble up again, and we'll get those puffy cumulus clouds.
Yeah,
it would be interesting to sort of see satellite image of the cloud cover and follow it over, the time period.
Yeah, it would.
The path
do that.
of
Yeah.
the path of the, to see if there's any correlation. And I would assume it would lag behind by, a bit of time. But that would be an interesting correlation.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you noticed were sunspots, and there were 3. And there is a study going on right now trying to correlate some of the global climate change that we're seeing related to sunspot cycles. And we're thinking maybe there's a connection, but we don't know yet. The science is still out, and it's worth researching.
I'm convinced there is. I wrote a paper years ago about sunspots and their impact on climate. I mentioned this earlier, that there is a pretty good correlation. It's been pretty well determined that the more sunspots we have, the hotter the planet will get. And the fewer sunspots we have, the cooler the planet gets. For example, there was a period of time back in the 1800s, the year without a summer. That was caused by a volcano. But there was a period of time back in the 1800s called the Maunder Minimum. And the Maunder Minimum was a period of time when there were no sunspots on the sun. And the actual overall temperature of the Earth. Now, we didn't have the type of temperature gauges we have now, but from what we were able to gather, the temperature of the planet actually did drop. Now, if I can recall this correctly, the lack of sunspots allows more cosmic rays to reach Earth's atmosphere. And as more cosmic rays reach Earth's atmosphere, the atmosphere will interact with tiny little condensation nuclei. And so when we have fewer sunspots, the Earth tends to get more cloudy. And as the Earth gets more cloudy, the overall temperature of the planet will drop somewhat. And so when you have fewer sunspots, you tend to have more clouds. And when you have more clouds, you tend to have a cooler Earth.
We're getting some interaction on Facebook, Kevin.
Great.
James, I have one for you. This comes from Robbie Van Winkle. He said, maybe this has already been discussed, but can you compare/contrast today's event and the one coming in 2024? Could you give us a play-by-play comparison of what happened today and what you believe will happen April 8th, 2024?
Well, again, we're looking at about a 7-year gap. The one difference, this shadow traveled from Oregon to South Carolina. It went in a northwesterly to southeasterly direction. The one in 2024 will reverse that and come from a southwesterly direction upwards into a northeasterly direction. The duration will be roughly the same. The path, and I'm looking at a little thing that shows here, it will not cross all the way across the United States like this one did. Okay. It'll come up through Mexico. It'll end up going all the way over into the northeast, New England territories and all that. The path's a little bit wider, which tells me that it's going to be a little bit slightly closer.
Okay, I'm going to step behind the camera and give people a good look at the track that you're holding right there in your hand, Kevin.
Yeah,
okay.
Because that is an excellent illustration.
Yeah, it really is, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. Something, I bring these things up a lot.
Yes.
I'm going to creep everybody out, or scare everybody. I'm not quite sure which one it's going to be. Oh, there's a jet flying over. Oh, nice jet. Okay, you got that, Matt? Okay, this here, right there, that's the eclipse path that we're taking today. It already has passed us right about here. But the one in 2024 goes this way. Now, look at how each of those eclipses crosses the United States. Now, anybody who knows me or has followed me on Facebook or some of my writings and things that I've talked about, I'm interested and I'm fascinated by superstitions. I'm fascinated by how people believe that the heavens may impact us here on Earth and so on. According to some, a total solar eclipse may spell a decline in an empire or some sort of horrible thing that may happen to a government or something like that. Now, the only thing that stands out to me about this is the fact that from today until the year 2024, look at this, X, right across the United States. Now, what does that mean to you? I'm not going to say. I have no idea. But I think it's fascinating that it does take a path like that, and we'll see what happens. But I thought you might find that interesting about how over the next 7 years, in 7 years from now, or actually a little bit later, we'll have a cross right across the United States where one eclipse went and where another one goes. So that's all I have about that. So we have an interview that I believe was downtown not long ago, and I happened to go downtown, and let me see, I was talking with some, how about some people from Ottawa, some girls from Ottawa, and I thought, Ottawa, Canada, how cool is that? That's not exactly how it went. Here's how this actually did go. Well, here we are in downtown Carbondale, and you're all wet. How did you get all wet? It's not raining. Oh, you went into the little sprayer thing here? Yeah. What's your name? Chloe. Chloe, and who's this?
That's Mamie.
Mamie?
Mamie.
Oh, hello. How are you? Oh, she's a shy one here. Where are you guys from?
Ottawa.
Ottawa, Canada?
Huh?
Ottawa, Canada?
No, Ottawa, Illinois.
Oh, Ottawa, Illinois. Well, I got confused on that. Well, and you're here to see the eclipse, right? All right, well, you guys have a great time, okay? And cool off back in there. It looks like it's really refreshing. Okay, thank you. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're sitting here in the shade in Carbondale, Illinois. As we get into the last legs of our total eclipse coverage, this has been really, really great so far. And once again, you can still contact us on my Facebook page. It's Kevin Orpert, Facebook. And you can ask a question, you can leave a comment. We started to get some feedback, and I really, really like that because it's been able to be interactive. And that was our goal when we first designed this, to make this somewhat unique compared to what some other web streams might be doing. I wanted to make it as local as possible, not only for us from our base in Terre Haute, but also for our other media, our Heartland stations, our Heartland stations across the United States. And I want to thank you guys for joining us as well. Matt?
Well, we have another question, and this one is just for you, Kevin.
Uh-oh.
You're probably familiar with this phrase. It comes from Ronnie Wallace Jr.
Okay.
Hey, Kevin, what is the weather going to be like? And is the sun completely covered by the moon?
Well, the sun was completely covered by the moon. And at least it was here in Carbondale. There are other places across the country where it didn't quite happen. But I would wager that if you had at least a partially clear sky, there was no doubt that something was going on as far as the moon shrouding the light of the sun. And so one thing I want to talk about is there has been some discussion and some loose, it hasn't been actually scientific information, but there has been some sort of discussion and interest in the idea that a solar eclipse may have to do something with earthquakes. That cannot be proven. And I don't think anybody, any sane scientist, would say that yes, there is a definite correlation between what happens with a solar eclipse and earthquakes. However, there is some indication. Remember the story I told you about the prophet? And it was later, after the prophet gave his eclipse prediction, which was in 1811.
Oh, Tecumseh.
Well, it's the prophet who did it.
Oh, the prophet. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Tecumseh's his brother.
Right.
And so it did happen later on in 1811, in December of 1811, and then the early months of 1812, those horrible New Madrid earthquakes, which actually were centered not very far at all from where we are right now. As far as we know, at least in historical reference, the largest earthquakes ever to occur on this continent. Okay? So there you go. Yes?
I'm shaking all over.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to do that.
All right, James, I have a question for you. And this might be a little more hard-hitting. During a solar eclipse, are there any fluctuations in gravity that are a little out of the norm, so to speak? Is there any slight change? Would I feel lighter at the totality?
Well, you have the moon lined up with the sun.
Yeah.
And so you have a confluence of gravitational influences there. Is there much of a difference? Probably not that we would notice, but if you could get in on a very minute scale with a decent kind of gravity measurement, the kind of equipment we don't quite have yet, I think we might be able to see some semblance of effect. You know, the moon is responsible for tides.
Right.
And it causes tides. I would not be surprised if maybe we saw a couple of slightly higher tides along that. Of course, it's all along the United States, so the only place we'd have tides would be on the east or west coast. Wouldn't be much tides on the Mississippi River, maybe, although anything's possible.
That's right.
But I don't think there's much of a difference. If there is, it would happen every month. Just because, you know, they do line up, even if they're not completely lined up, you know, they're in a general alignment. And so you're going to get some confluence of gravitational waves, but not a lot. I think there's probably more in effect when you get all the planets lining up on one side of the sun, which has happened a couple of times in my lifetime, where you can see like all 5 planets in the sky. And there was one time, back in the 80s, I believe, where they all lined up on the same side of the sun. And I think there was some impact on the gravitational fields of our solar system. Again, not much, but if we had the proper equipment to measure it, I think we'd see it.
All right. Greg, anything?
Yeah, I do. So when we're little and we draw a picture from the refrigerator, we draw the sun. And when we draw a pretty sunset, we draw it red. And one of the students wants to know, why is the sun one color, but we see lots of different colors associated with it?
See, I feel like you could argue the sun is just about any color, and you could be right. Because, I mean, you know, at sunset, the Earth's atmosphere tends to bend the longer wavelengths of light, which usually tends to be the oranges, the reds, the yellows. So one could argue that, no, it's yellow, no, it's orange, no, it's red.
I think we saw today, at least during the diamond ring, that it's white, which is made up of all the different colors.
Yep.
And they just happen to get spread out at, you know, different frequencies as they come through the sky, which is, I've heard you on the news talk before why the sky is blue and why the sunset is red and why we get the green during harvest times and storm times. But yeah, I think we saw today it was definitely a white.
Yes, yes it was.
And there, of course, is a, you were talking about the color white. White is a combination of all colors. Most people think black is a color, and it's not. It's just the absence of color. And some people have a little trouble understanding that. It's
well, now wait a minute. Now wait a minute.
Uh-oh. An argument.
Black is a color. It has to be a color, otherwise we wouldn't have a name for it, right?
No, I disagree. Black is the absence of color. It is the non-reflection. When I bounce light off of you, here I see a little thin trail of white. Sorry. It's just a total eclipse.
Keep it PG.
But you, for example, light waves are bouncing off of you.
Yeah.
All is absorbed except blue wavelengths, and they come back. And the red is reflected back, and the lovely Channel 10 logo is reflected back very nicely. But here, it's absorbing all of the wavelengths, and none is being reflected back. So
then I couldn't see it.
And you don't. And NASA has actually created a substance that is the blackest substance on Earth. And in fact, it's gotten on people's nerves when they look at it, because there is absolutely no reflection whatsoever, and it looks like a hole. and it really bothers people. And that is black and the absence of color and the absence of reflection.
And what would you call that?
I would call that eerie. I'll tell you what I saw up there in that black circle with a ring of light around it and the corona coming about when the clouds parted, that was a beautiful color.
I'll tell you what, let's put this one to a test. Go to Kevin Orpert's Facebook page, and you tell us whether you think black is the absence of color or whether you think black is a color.
Black is a color. It has to be. Because when you order a T-shirt, what color did it say it was going to be? Black, right?
I think that's just to make people comfortable. But as a scientist, I view it as an absence of color, an absence of reflection.
All right, let's ask our science teacher from Woodrow Wilson in Terre Haute. Greg?
Yes.
What do you think?
Oh, how can I do this and make everybody happy?
Yeah,
I think white is the reflection of all colors,
right?
And black is the reflection of no colors.
So you're on his side?
Sort of.
Matt? Okay, Matt's not going to say anything.
Can we go back to the corona, though, for a second?
Yeah, let's do it.
You know, because this is the only time we really get to see it. And it was massive. You know, if I think of how far out that stretched from the moon's, you know, the darkness of the moon, it was almost, each side was almost the width of the sun itself.
It was far bigger than I expected.
Yes.
Far bigger than I
agree.
expected.
Okay. Let me talk about ghosts.
Oh, boy.
Because we were talking about gravity. You mentioned gravity.
Gravity, yes.
Okay. We all know that there are electromagnetic fields that interact between the sun and the moon and the earth.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. With that in mind, some ghost hunters, some people who follow ghosts and hunt for them, Dr. Dave Oster of ghostweb.com, he wrote this: "We have found that 2 or 3 days on each side of the full or new moon." Well, today is the new moon. So a couple of days before today, a couple of days after, the best times for ghost investigations. We have been teaching that peak geomagnetic fields are the best time since 1994. So, does that mean that as we've had this eclipse and as we go on either side of the new moon, that we are more likely, because of some veil being lifted geomagnetically, that some other side is able to move through? What do you think?
I think that is a most interesting hypothesis. I would love to try to prove it.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that. I believe there are things we do not know and we do not understand. And the only way we can understand them is to explore and investigate. And I agree with you. I think there is some possibilities.
All right. What do you think, Greg? Because you told me, and I don't want to, but you've had an experience with a ghost?
Oh, yeah. We've had some things going on in the house.
Right.
We think, sort of unexplained things. So, yeah, I don't know about opening portals or any of that. I mean, would it only be along that path, or is it everywhere? Or
I think it's everywhere, but maybe would be more accentuated along the path here in Carbondale and then all the way down to South Carolina. So I don't know. I just toss these things out because in doing my research about this eclipse, I came across all of this fascinating information, not just scientific, which I let you guys handle, but I like to take on the sort of interesting kind of really sort of information that is out there. Some people believe and others don't. It's up to you whether you choose to believe it or not, but I like to put that out there so you can think about it.
That's the great thing about this. It just opens up ideas, communication, exploration, and talk.
Yes, yes.
Kevin will say this: you're never afraid to go there. You're a bold man.
No, I'm not afraid to go there. I find it fascinating. I've always been interested in those things, and so I just like to do that. And I'm looking through somebody said a little while ago, I don't want to get too much into this.
Okay.
But when I interviewed Jeff, who's the property manager here at Ambassador, and he said it was a religious experience.
He said not quite a religious experience.
Not quite, yeah.
Not quite.
Not quite. There are, and I was talking with a friend of mine, when we go back about thousands and thousands of years, are there references to eclipses? And he said, well, why not look in the Bible? Why not see if the Bible has any record of that? Not necessarily, but there could be references in Isaiah, Ezekiel, Joel, Matthew, Mark, Revelation. Those books of the Bible each have a possible reference to either a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse. For example, in Joel, the sun and moon grow dark and the stars lose their brightness. Joel 2:31, the sun will be turned into darkness. So that to me is an indication of ancient writings that would indicate a possible solar eclipse. Actually, a pretty good example of that.
Absolutely.
Okay. How we doing there, Matthew?
I'm not seeing a whole lot as far as Facebook traffic goes, but
Okay.
I'm wondering where we are as far as moon coverage of the sun. I'm wondering if we could take
we're
our
close.
camera with our very...
How we doing there? Scott, you got
Yeah.
that up? What am I seeing?
We're looking at about 7-8%. We're very near the end.
Okay, we're very near the end. Of course, we'll be wrapping up this live web stream here in just a little bit.
I would personally like to give a shout out to everyone in Terre Haute. I know they probably didn't get quite the view we got, but you know what? They had faith in us. They follow us. They look at what we're doing, and I'm personally very grateful.
Me too.
I can't say enough for the citizens of the Wabash Valley and their support of what we do and their willingness to allow us to come out here and to educate or edumacate, depending on your point of view. But just, I'm personally very grateful because this is everything I ever wanted as an astronomer, was to get out and teach and to get people to look up.
All right. And I want to give a shout out to our Heartland Media affiliate stations, some of them who joined us over this web stream. So I want to say hello, a special hello to all of our Heartland Media affiliates, KDRV, KEZI, WKTV, WTVA, KHSL, WTHI.
Oh, I know that one.
Yeah, me too. WLFI, WFFT, KIMT, KQTV, and WAAY. All of them who joined us at one point or another throughout the course of this web stream. I want to thank them. And also the great people with Heartland Media who helped make this happen, including Jeff Minus, who is over here drifting around some,
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, Jeff, for helping. Jeff, I got to tell you, we were stressed out. We were really stressed out because because when we first planned to do this, now we have a way of getting a signal back to the station where this is being fed out. And we were going to use a little thing called a TVU, which actually is just a little backpack kind of thing, which hooks up to cell service, cell phone service. And we read all these horrible stories about how you may not get a cell connection. If you get a cell connection, it might drop. And I had these visions of us saying, and now here's the to it, you know, go like that. So Jeff was able to secure a fiber optic feed, and we've been able to use that. And for the most part, it has been reliable this afternoon, and we didn't have to worry about faulty cell service.
Sure.
And so that's great also.
And our sponsor, Suntan Factory.
Oh, yeah. Sun Factory back in Terre Haute, the Vigo County Conservation Club, who helped make this possible. And so a lot of people along the line, and we'll get there to the names here in just a minute because I want to introduce you to the entire crew here in just a little bit. In the meantime, Jeff, you may have another couple of questions that we want to touch on from your students.
Sure.
Woodrow Wilson.
This one, not so much about the eclipse exactly, but are people still going into space? Or is it just robots now? She asks.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yes, it is. Well, right now we're still working to get people back into space. The Russians are still doing it. Yeah. They have a very robust program, and their rockets are very reliable. Have been since the 60s. And, you know, we occasionally will send astronauts up on there. We'll pay to do so. But here next year, we begin testing the new Orion rockets and space capsules that will allow us to start returning our own people by our own means back to the International Space Station, but more importantly, to think about going back to the moon and onto Mars. And that program is really gearing up next year when we test the first rocket into orbit of the new launch system.
What is this going to be private or is this NASA?
And this is NASA. NASA's been funding this and doing this very well. We have some private entrepreneurs that are looking to do that as well for pay. But in terms of what the government can do, especially NASA, this new program, the Orion program, and the whole Return to Space program is a NASA-funded tax dollar program that I believe deserves our full and absolute support.
All right, but I would think that actually that's a pretty good question,
yes.
Because I think there could be a time in the not too distant future where we do not need humans to go into space, right? They could be robots, artificial intelligence, and so on. What do you think?
I hope that day never comes. Mankind should always strive to go out into space and explore. The one thing you can't do is program a robot to improvise. You can't do it. And oftentimes we have to improvise. Apollo 13 is a prime example of improvisation and success. And you can't program that in a robot. I hope it never happens. I want us to continuously strive to explore, to go out there, someday to go to Mars and on, to explore all the other planets, including Pluto, which will always be a planet.
Yeah, I'm a Pluto guy,
I agree.
too.
There you go.
Yeah, all right. Anything else here, Matt, from Facebook?
No, it's pretty quiet in
Okay,
the world
good.
of Facebook. Another question for you, James. Do you think, we'd be losing our drive as part of humanity to get into space if all we do is send robots up into the blackness of space?
Yes, I do. I feel that as a human being, as humanity, our internal mechanism requires that we explore. It's what makes us human. It's what separates us from the animals. There are many things you can make that case for, but the drive to explore, that is what we are about. It's one of the reasons we went to the moon. It's one of the reasons we sent...
Allegedly. I do that all the time.
You do that to me because you know I'm absolutely a supporter of the moon.
I know. Okay. Go ahead.
Just like the Big Bang Theory, I too have bounced laser beams off those reflectors. I know they're there.
Okay.
And no robot put them there.
Some people think, Richard C. Hoagland thinks that there are aliens on the moon in these giant glass towers.
Now, I'm going to tell a story.
Okay.
It's my story time.
Okay.
Okay, I'm at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis in 1999, and I was invited to Johnson Space Center for the ASCAN interviews, the astronaut candidate interviews. I had applied to be an astronaut.
What?
The ASCAN interviews, astronaut candidate.
Okay.
And this was my second time. And I went there, and I didn't make the cut. They every 2 years they select, they get 2,000 applicants, they select 200 to interview, and they train 20 of them. I've made the 200 cut twice. So I go there, I go through the whole process. At the end, I'm done. And a colleague from Indiana State who headed up Earth Sciences at Johnson Space Center invited me to go out and play golf. We went out and played golf. I said, well, I'm left-handed. I don't know if I can do any, I don't have my clubs or anything. He says, a friend of mine will come along. That friend turned out to be Harrison Schmitt, Apollo 17 geologist and moonwalker.
Oh, wow.
And so we're playing golf, and he kicked my butt in golf, and I'm not too bad a golfer. I asked him, I said, tell me a story. And oh my God, did he tell me a story. It seems that on Apollo 17, they were about to leave the moon, and they had put seismic detectors on there because the moon does have quakes.
Yes, it does.
And they've measured them. And they put out these seismic detectors, and then just before they lifted off, there were some detected seismic waves that the press wanted to ask about because it was a very open press conference. And Harrison Schmitt explained that, well, before we left, we had to shed some weight, and so we threw out some items and left them behind on the moon. And the press asked, well, what did you throw out? And they said, well, we threw out the urine and feces bags along with other items because they stayed on the moon for 3 days. And so they had to use the facilities, and so they left them behind. Well, the Native Americans of this country took great offense to that because the moon to them was holy ground. And they actually sued NASA for desecrating holy ground. Well, the Supreme Court finally ruled on that and said, no, it doesn't work like that. The moon's not owned by anybody. But it was an interesting story that we left some stuff behind, and it angered the Native Americans. And I understand their point of view.
Yeah.
I can see how they feel that way. But, again, the moon belongs to everyone, and so we kind of left some of our trash behind.
All right. Let's take a look. Okay, let's see, 2:46 right now. I think we have maybe one more minute of the moon over the solar disk. Okay, Scott, let's take a shot of that. And I'm going to step over here and just take a look at this as everybody at home does as well. For those of you watching on our internet stream, oh yeah. In fact, I'm not sure I see any.
Nope.
Yeah.
Just barely. We're at
Well,
less than 1%.
The total eclipse of the sun for this date, August the 21st, 2017, America's eclipse, at least in Carbondale, Illinois, has finished. We saw a tremendous view of totality. We had a great display. It was cloudy for a moment, and then suddenly the clouds broke, the sun shone through, and we experienced here an event that I never witnessed in my lifetime, and hopefully I'll be able to see again in 2024. So as we have just a couple of minutes left, I want to gather the crew over here, if we could please, so that we can say the proper thank yous to everyone involved. You want us in front of the camera, Scott, or behind? I'm talking to Scott Arnold, by the way, who's the producer of this this thing this afternoon. And so come on over here, Les. These are people that we could not have done this without their participation. I want to first of all say this is Les the engineer, Les Garrett. Les, thank you very much. You put all the wires and
pretty much
buttons and everything together. And Les also was behind the camera that showed the solar disk.
and that was awesome.
It was.
That was
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was. So thank you, Les.
You're welcome.
All right. Of course, James C. Wallace II, our resident astronomer out of the Vigo County Conservation Club. James, we've been working on this for a while. It did not disappoint.
No, sir, it did not. And you and I have worked together a long time. I think this pretty much tops our career together as some of the best stuff we've ever done.
Yeah, the icing on the cake. Here is Scott Arnold. He's the producer. He's the guy who is playing back all the video of the interviews and everything we did. He shot the interviews when we went downtown. Scott, we couldn't have done it without you. So
You're the man, Scott.
yeah, thank you very much. Anything you want to say?
Once in a lifetime opportunity. It was great to be a part of it.
Okay, great. And come on up here, Greg. Greg Sloan from Woodrow Wilson Middle School. Greg, your students must be very excited, and you've got a story to tell when you get back.
I do have a story to tell, and I told them the other day before coming here that 10-year-old little Mr. Sloan said he was going to see this happen back in 1979. So I'm very grateful, and thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Of course, Matt Brooks, meteorologist at WTHI-TV, one of my cohorts. Matt, something else.
It really was something else. I remember as a little kid in middle school reading about this solar eclipse. I was in northern Michigan. I'd have no idea I would be in Carbondale, Illinois at the time this happened, and the fact that I had the chance to see it all go down. It was amazing. A once-in-a-lifetime experience for me. If I'm lucky enough to see it again in 2024, that'll be something too, but I'm happy to have just seen it today.
All right, thanks. And come on in here. This is Jeff Minus, and Jeff is with Heartland Media. You're kind of the corporate guy who put all of this together. Thank you so very, very much for all of your work. You made it really possible for us.
No, my pleasure. Once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'm just glad that cloud moved out of the way just in time for us. It worked out perfect.
Yeah, it really did. What do you say we all get back together in 2024 and do it again?
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. Well, I think we're about to wrap this up. Oh, I also want to thank my wife, the caterer of this. She's behind the. She made sandwiches. She brought soft drinks and so on, and now she gets to clean up after us.
I just want to thank my wife, Amanda. She wasn't able to make it here, but her support allows me to do this.
All
Without her, I am nothing.
All right. Well, I think we're about to wrap this up here. I want to thank everybody who tuned in across the country with our Heartland media outlets, certainly to our friends back at WTHI-TV.com, to Jade and Chris Essex and everybody else who put this thing together to help make it work. Thank you all so very much, but thank you folks for watching through this whole thing. Maybe you didn't see the whole thing, but just for any moment that you tuned in, thank you very much, and goodbye everybody from Carbondale, Illinois.
This has been WTHI-TV.com's live streaming coverage of the National Eclipse. This special presentation has been sponsored by Sun Factory Tanning and Spa.